What's up? What's up? It's Jimmy G here on the CLT Life radio show with Jimmy G and Walls. I'm your host, Jimmy G. Walls is out of the studio today, so we'll be doing this one solo, but I will be featuring some of his music later on. If you don't know, Walls is a local Charlotte area musician. He's a hip hop artist, a writer, an entrepreneur, so has some great things, a lot of great new songs that have come out recently. So we're going to be able to feature a few of those on this show. But hey, what's up? First off, I want to talk about the Carolina Panthers, as we always do. We're going to talk about a little road trip that I took earlier this week, and I also want to talk about some local markets and some ways that you can support local businesses. And we'll also talk a little bit about real estate today. So settle in, strap in your seatbelts if you're driving, and let's get ready for this show. All right. All right, so first of all, Carolina Panthers pulled off the stunner, beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 21-3 this weekend over the Tampa Bay Bucks, the first place Tampa Bay Bucks. Tom Brady now has a losing record at 3-4 for the first time since 2002. So I'm going to pose the question right now at 2-5. So we're tied for third with the Saints. Technically, we beat them head to head, so we would be in third place out of four teams based on our overall record at 2-5. The Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers through 7 games are both 3-4. But we're 2-0 in the NFC South. We've won both of our games. We beat the Saints. Now we've beaten the Bucks. This coming week, we're going to Atlanta. We're going to go on the road to play the Falcons. They just lost 35-17 this past week to the Cincinnati Bengals. So I pose the question: if we beat the Atlanta Falcons on the road this weekend, and we're sitting at 3-0 in the NFC South, are we the best team in the NFC South? This team that was 1-5 coming into this weekend, this team that fired head coach Matt Rule after a 1-4 start, which granted, we could have easily won the first 2 games. We lost the first game against the Cleveland Browns when their rookie field goal kicker kicked like a 64-yarder or something crazy, like 61 or 64 yards to beat us. That doesn't happen very often. The very next week against the New York Giants in New York, the Giants who've only lost 1, maybe 2 games now, we beat them, or I'm sorry, they beat us on a last-second field goal as well. So the first 2 games of the season, we lost on last-second field goals with very, very stagnant offensive performances. But the defense has played great all year. Yesterday, I would say, was their best performance of the season, holding Tampa Bay, the Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay, with Mike Evans, with Leonard Fournette at running back, with all these weapons, and held them to 3 points, which is just probably the most dominant defensive performance we've seen from the Panthers in a long time. We also had the most efficient and by far the best quarterback play that we've seen all season long out of a Carolina Panthers quarterback. And that Panthers quarterback's name was PJ Walker. So let me read you these stats right here. So PJ Walker was 16 for 22, 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. We also ran the ball for 173 yards. So talk about a balanced offense right there. 177 through the air, 173 passing. The way it broke down, because they add and subtract for sacks, which in the NFL, if you didn't know, sacks actually count against your passing numbers in the NFL. In college, they count against your rushing numbers. We had 343 total yards running the ball. Dante Foreman ran for 118 yards. Chuba Hubbard had 63 yards and a touchdown. We had a touchdown pass to DJ Moore, so he got back in the end zone. That was great to see. He had 7 catches for 69 yards. We also had a Tommy Tremble sighting on National Tight Ends Day. So every year the NFL has National Tight Ends Day, and that was this week. And if you remember, Tommy Tremble was a very high pick last year by the Carolina Panthers, the tight end out of Notre Dame, and he was supposed to come in. And even though he didn't have very good receiving numbers in college at Notre Dame, he was considered more of a blocking tight end, but he had good hands and good speed and good size, and he was expected to become the next George Kittle. That was the comparison that we were hearing, was this guy could be the next George Kittle. Well, He went out there and he caught a touchdown. So his first touchdown of the season on like a 39-yard pass, I think. It was a beautiful play down the right sidelines. Perfect pass by PJ Walker, hit Tommy Tremble in stride. And I'm sitting there watching this happen. And I was like, was that Tommy Tremble? Did we just have a Tommy Tremble sighting? This guy that we've been waiting for him to step up for so long. And maybe it was him, maybe it's just the quarterbacks not being able to get the ball to him. But that's a big question too. So we've played four quarterbacks at different stages during the season this year. Obviously, we started out, or I'm sorry, we've actually played three because Sam Darnold hasn't played yet. We started the season with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield got hurt in week 5, hurt his ankle. He's out for a few weeks. Then PJ Walker came in. He performed last week. He played last week. First game of the season with the new head coach, Steve Wilks. Short preparation week against the 49ers, who have, one of the top defenses against the LA Rams. Have a pretty good defense, but it was a very bland attack. So we didn't push the ball downfield at all, not whatsoever, in that game against the LA Rams, which was PJ Walker's first start of the season. That game was pretty much the Christian McCaffrey show. I think he totaled like 158 yards between rushing and passing, and we really struggled offensively. Besides getting the ball to McCaffrey in his final game as a Carolina Panther, and then Jacob Eason, who's the backup to the backup, he was the practice squad quarterback, earlier this year, and with Sam Darnold being hurt, with Baker Mayfield being hurt, he's been PJ Walker's backup. And he actually got into the game against the Rams and drove Carolina down the field and just has a really, really strong arm. Looked pretty good. And just that one drive that he was out there. So it gets you thinking, what's the plan for the Carolina Panthers quarterback? Well, the way PJ Walker played yesterday with that efficient performance, it's going to be hard to pull him from the starting lineup. And Steve Wilks even said that much in his post-game presser after the game this week over the Bucks, saying that with the strong performance, it's going to be really hard to pull PJ Walker from the starting lineup. So, what do you do? I mean, that's going to be interesting. Again, like I said earlier, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, PJ Walker had by far, the strongest performance by a Carolina Panthers quarterback this season. And when I think about it, looking back, probably the best performance from a quarterback that we've had in terms of taking care of the ball, running the offense, getting us downfield, accuracy and efficiency, passing the ball. Probably a better performance than we saw in 2021 out of Sam Darnold all year. Do you even go back to Teddy Bridgewater? Bridgewater didn't turn the ball over as much, but he didn't really move the ball, especially in the fourth quarter, which, we were up 7-0 at halftime and then outscored the Bucks 14-3 and had our best offensive half, taking away the fourth quarter. In the first game against the Cleveland Browns, we had our best offensive half of the entire season. So that's some stuff to look forward to with the new look Carolina Panthers. Steve Wilks is the head coach. PJ Walker possibly as the starting quarterback. Robbie Anderson was traded to the Arizona Cardinals, and Christian McCaffrey traded to the San Francisco 49ers. So last week was just a crazy, crazy week for the Panthers. Very hectic. We also had some standouts on defense that I'll talk about real quick. Dante Jackson had a team high 10 tackles. That was his high for the season. He's been battling some injuries. He played a great game. And then Brian Burns, he's one of the premier edge rushers in the NFL right now. He had 5 tackles and a sack, had 2 tackles for loss, and he has 8 total tackles for loss this season, which is good for third most in the NFL. So what a weekend in the NFL for the Carolina Panthers. I would dare say, was this the strangest week in Carolina Panthers history? Where would you rank this with bringing Cam Newton back last year? So, all right. Well, moving on from Carolina Panthers football, the Charlotte Hornets started their basketball season earlier this week as well. They actually won a big game against the against the San Antonio Spurs. In the first game, they blew them out by like 27 points, and people were saying, "Oh, that was just the Spurs. The Spurs aren't any good." Uh, but the Spurs have actually not looked too bad in the first couple of games this year. They lost to us, and then they ended up winning their next two games, and the Hornets are now 2-1. So they won their first game. They lost their second one to the Grizzlies, and then they went to Atlanta yesterday or on Sunday, game three. They won that game 126 to 109. So the Charlotte Hornets off to a solid 2-1 start. Minus LaMelo Ball, he hasn't come out yet. He's been injured, so we hope to get him back pretty soon. Dennis Smith Jr. I watched the game against the Pelicans. Dennis Smith Jr. looks pretty good. You remember he was a top pick out of NC State a few years ago for the Dallas Mavericks, and just didn't really work out there. And he's found his way back to the Carolinas. So maybe this is the place where he gets to resurrect his career and show off his playmaking ability, his athleticism that he has, and come out and play well. All right. So let's see, reaching out on a couple of other topics here. Uh, so if you listen to the CLT Life, obviously this is the CLT Life podcast. We also do, I also do gear and apparel. So I created the CLT Life a few years ago as a way to start talking to and interviewing local business owners, showcasing things that are great about Charlotte to people who lived here, to people who are maybe thinking about moving here and just wanted to find out what Charlotte was all about. And I always had this idea of wanting to get into merchandising, and finally decided to take the leap and get into doing some merchandising. And I've got some really cool shirts. So I participated in the CLT Life participated in an open air outside market put on by Sunny Day Markets, and they're a local organization. They're based in Indian Trail, North Carolina, and they organize these open air markets, these pop up markets all over the Charlotte area, and they kind of work the perimeter of Charlotte. So you don't see too many that are like in the city. But we just did one this past weekend in Waxhaw. They were also in Monroe the same day. I'm going to be this coming weekend, October 29th, at Middle James Brewery in Pineville, which is basically just outside of the city. And they're going to be having a pop up market from 3 to 8 p.m. We had 30 plus vendors there, and lots of times they have food trucks. And obviously, when there's a brewery involved, there's food, there's drinks, there's all these different vendors and people who are bringing their stuff out to sell. So this is, if you can see it right here, obviously, if you're listening on the radio, you're not going to be able to see this, but I'm recording this as well. And I got a couple designs I'm showing right now. The Charlotte FC inspired shirt that we have with the CLT Life logo. We also have a really cool Carolina Panthers inspired shirt. We call it the CP Legends shirt. Has the two Carolina states and has the names of lots of legendary Carolina Panthers football players who have played on the team over the years. But what we really wanted to start with was the main logo, the basic logo that we have, which is the Charlotte City skyline above the words "the CLT Life," with a sun, setting sun or a rising sun, depending on how you want to look at it, in the background behind a silhouette of the city, and just has these great bright colors. And we went to Waxhaw and we set up our tent, and we had hoodies, we had short sleeve shirts, we had long sleeve shirts, we had short sleeve shirts with a pink CLT Life logo on them that we're selling. Every one of those that sells, we donate money to Carolina Breast Friends. So we're doing that through the rest of the month, the rest of October. So hopefully we can sell out of those shirts that we have between this week and then the market coming up at Mill James Brewery this week. But there's so many great opportunities to support small businesses throughout Charlotte. And I always say that local businesses are what really give a city, a town, a community its character and what really makes it stand out from other places. And in addition to all these brick and mortar places that we have, like most of our restaurants are brick and mortar, there's food trucks as well, right? There's popular food trucks that travel around, and people get to experience those. Well, there's brick and mortar places where you can go for crafts. There's brick and mortar places you can go for Charlotte inspired gear and apparel as well. And there's plenty of places online. There's pop up shops. There's all that stuff. So the CLT life is stepping into that venue, that area, as another option. You know, we're not trying to be anything that we're not. We're not trying to um, take over the market. You know, we're not trying to push any other apparel businesses out of business. In fact, I'm wearing right now, if you can see, if you're watching on the video, I'm wearing a Queen City Hoops shirt from the 704 shop right now. Love the 704 shop. And, you know, quite honestly, they're an inspiration and motivation to to create the things that I create. And my style is not the same as their style. Glory Days Apparel, they're another really cool one as well. My style is not the same as Glory Days Apparel. So we're creating different stuff. There's just so much stuff out there that you can get, that you can wear, that you can get to support your city, to represent your city. And then so many local businesses that are out there to support. There's also Front Porch Sundays in South End. That's held at Atherton Mall. It's the first Sunday of the month. Atherton Mill, I'm sorry. The first Sunday of every month. So there's two more coming up in 2022. We've got one on November the 6th. We have another one on December the 4th. So support local businesses here in and around the Charlotte area. All right. There's also some things to do outside of the Charlotte area. And my family and I actually did that this week. We went down to Columbia, South Carolina. It's about an hour and a half drive south of Charlotte, right down 77. We live south of Charlotte, so we actually got to take some back roads half the way down there, and then popped out on 77, just below Great Falls, South Carolina. But the it's called the Riverbanks Zoo and Botanical Garden. It's in Columbia, South Carolina, and it's a really cool place. You know, it's a great place to go. Families can go there and hang out. If you have kids, it's a great place. You know, kids love seeing the animals. If you're just someone who likes animals, likes to go to the zoo, you can easily go there by yourself, or you can go on a date. There's you can go with a friend. You know, there's so many great exhibits there. They've got all the attractions. They got the lions and the tigers and the bears. Oh my, as everyone says. But they got a great selection. Great I don't know if selection's the right word, but they have it's just a it's a great place to go. A great place to see animals of all different types. And so we went this week on a balmy October day, 70 degrees, perfect weather, and it's like a nice walk in the park, really, and it's not too far away. If you're gonna go once, and when you get there, if you think you're gonna go again before you leave, I recommend getting the season pass. So the cool thing about the season pass is it's not just for the year. So like if you get a season pass in early 22, so we went in March of 2022, we got a season pass. It's not good just till the end of 2022. It's actually good for 12 months, and you can go as many times as you want, and you can actually bring up to six total guests, and they get to go for free over the course of that time. So you might go and you might want to bring two people with you. Well, they can come for free if you want to give them, you know, let them use two of your passes. So you could do that three times. You could bring one person six times. So it's a great way to go and see the zoo, to be able to do something that's outside, and that's outside of the Charlotte area, but it's within a day trip. Um, like I said, an hour and a half down there, an hour and a half back. It's a great place. I highly recommend it. So if you've never been to the Riverbanks Zoo and Botanical Gardens, I certainly recommend checking it out. And check out those botanical gardens too. So there's a walking bridge that you can go across. They run a tram back and forth from and it goes over top of a river, and it goes from the zoo section over to these beautiful botanical gardens that they have set up. So it was a great time. I highly recommend checking it out. All right. Well, now we're to the real estate segment of the show. And just to be quite honest with you, the real estate market has shifted. So I'm a licensed real estate agent, licensed realtor in North Carolina and South Carolina since 2013. I My license is affiliated with JPAR Carolina Living Real Estate here in the Charlotte market. And in the shifting market, I've got some tips for both home buyers and home sellers. So first off, for home buyers, if you're paying attention to interest rates, whether you're watching on the news or your lender's telling you, what your interest rate is, I just want I want to let you know that there are other options out there besides just going with the 30-year fixed rate, 7%, whatever you're getting quoted right now. There's other options out there. One that you may or may not have heard of is called the 2-1 buy down. So the way the 2-1 buy down works is, let's say you've got a 7% interest rate. You get to buy that rate down 2 points in the first year. So you would have a 5% interest rate for the first 12 months of your loan, 1% the second year. So months 13 through 24, you got a 1% buy down. And then in the third year, at the end of the second year, so the beginning of the third year, you would go back to whatever that quoted interest rate is. And the idea is, the expectation is that interest rates will be lower than 6.5%, 7%, whatever it is you're getting quoted right now, and that you would be able to actually refinance and get into a lower rate. So that's one option. Now, when you do that, the way we're seeing that happen lots of times, because it really increases the buyer's closing costs. So buyers are actually working that into their offers to the seller and asking the seller to pay closing costs to cover that additional amount of their closing costs, so they can actually get it, so they can get the home and have it at that lower rate, at least initially, in the first 2 years. And as far as the benefit from the seller, they can theoretically sell it for a higher price as opposed to having to do a big price drop on their home. So there's also off-market products. So some lenders have off-market products that you don't even hear about. They're not, and this is like 30-year fixed products, but you don't hear about them. They're not advertised, and they are much lower than what you can get from these traditional products. So, and those are permanent. So those are permanent rate reductions. So instead of doing like a 2-1 buy down where it's 2 points lower 1 year, 1 point the next, that's coming in, and I'm just making up numbers here, but let's say you got 7% is the interest rate. You might be able to get it for 5% or even lower than that right now, on some of these off-market products. So, and numbers always change. So I'm not quoting or saying this is what the number is or this is what your rate will be. Numbers are always changing. But if that's something that you're interested in, certainly contact me and I can connect you with a lender who can give you that information and see if that's something that you could possibly do. Now, going on to sellers, I've got three main things that are important for sellers, three keys that are important in today's market. The three P's, I call them. It's presentation, patience, and price. So as far as presentation, gone are the days where you can take pictures with your cell phone, somebody's reflection showing up in the mirror. You didn't clear off the counters. You didn't declutter. You don't have good lighting, and expect people to come and see your house. You got to have good presentation. So that means professional photography. That means either professional staging or staging advice. Presenting it so the house is gonna show well in the pictures, because that's what's going to spark someone's interest to then want to come see it. So that's how real estate's always been done in the past year and a half or so, with the crazy market that we had, where everyone was getting multiple offers. Some buyers could be lazy, or buyer's agents even could be lazy and get away with it and still be able to sell the house. So that's just not really the case anymore. We're getting back to basics when it comes to real estate, and just really marketing and presenting the home in its most positive light. The second thing for sellers, I would say, is to have patience. So homes are taking longer to sell now than they have the past couple years. We're getting back to more traditional time frames, and there's some indicators that we could be going from what's considered a seller's market, which we've been in for a really long time, to a buyer's market. And a buyer's market is when there's more than 6 months of inventory on the market. So basically, when homes are sitting there and they're not selling really quickly, then the buyers have a little bit more leverage to put pressure downward on pricing and try to get a better deal on the home. So for so long, sellers have had the upper hand, and as the market is starting to shift, we're a little bit more balanced right now. We're heading towards that balance, and eventually we could get into a market where the buyers actually have the upper hand. And these things are cyclical, so it's natural for the sellers to have the upper hand for a while, then for the buyers to have the upper hand. So that's just changing market. The third thing that I talked about is price. So pricing a home correctly is so important right now. I was looking at some stats recently, and in several of the local Charlotte markets, submarkets, we're seeing up to 50% of homes that have price reductions on them. That means they went on the MLS at one price, and before going on the contract, they had to lower the asking price on the home to entice a buyer, interested buyer, to make an offer on the house. And one of the reasons that it's so important to price your home correctly right now is because the market, by all indications, the market has peaked for right now. So it hasn't peaked in the sense that a home's value is never going to get higher than it is right now. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's peaked for right now. Like, imagine a roller coaster. The car going up, 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 and then it peaks, and then it has to go down. So we're at this point right now where homes have been overinflated. The values have been overinflated for 6 months, the past 6 months to a year, leading up into June, July. So really, I would say the first half of 2022 and the second half, and really most of 2021, home values were artificially inflated by a lack of supply and super low interest rates. Well, now interest rates are a whole lot higher than they were before. So that's naturally going to put downward pressure on pricing. So home buyers are just not offering as much as they were before. They're not competing on houses as much anymore. And because of the higher interest rates, it's pushing buyers down, a lot of them, into lower price brackets, as far as like what price home they can actually afford. So as a seller, that's something you really need to be aware of. You can overprice your house in this market and just be sitting there because you missed out. Whereas if you price at or even slightly below what recent sales have shown, you're going to be able to sell your home a whole lot more quickly. So that is my portion of the show for today. I appreciate everyone listening. We're going to send you out with some music by Walls. Again, he's the co-host today. He couldn't be in the studio today, but we'll be back together next week. And we're going to send you out with some music by Walls. Check him out on Instagram and check him out on Spotify, anywhere you stream music. On Instagram, he's at Life of Walls, WALS. That's Walls with one L. You can Google Walls Hip Hop, WALS Hip Hop, on Spotify and find him there. Thanks for listening to this show. We'll be back next week. Take care.